Every single member of the House of Commons gave a standing ovation to a Waffen-SS Nazi soldier just last week. Aside from this being very embarrassing for the country of Canada, when you think about this Liberal government, it really is par for the course. Is it not? Black-faced Trudeau, the most progressive politician, feminist Trudeau firing his female cabinet ministers, and pro-democracy Trudeau banning the unvaccinated and then beating them in the street at a peaceful demonstration at the trucker convoy. And although this is yet another Liberal government blunder, there are some Conservatives on the right wing who are asking for an apology from Trudeau. How does this community feel? How does that community feel? Morally condemning them and really asking someone to be canceled. So why does a 98-year-old man who's done atrocities way back in World War II take precedent over the horrible atrocities that are happening today? The answer is because slowly over time, we've been programmed. And the deprogramming starts now.
I promise you, I will not let you down.
The trucks parked outside illegally should move.
Canada's Conservatives will meet our Paris climate commitment.
Enough with the woke. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I take that back.
To champion our conservative principles.
We are the party of law and order.
To call in the auditors.
We haven't yet decided whether we're going to call for the government to impose a mandatory test or vaccination.
And we will win the next election. Canada must not ignore the reality of climate change.
Why weren't Canadians vaccinated in January and February like everyone else?
Welcome, everybody, to Controlled Opposition, episode 29. Tonight, with me, I have a young Christian conservative activist, Trump supporter, and what I really think is a keen young mind when it comes to political strategy. Also a member of America First, the one and only Tyler Russell. How are you doing tonight, sir?
It's going awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Very excited to have this conversation about Trudeau and Nazis. It's going to be fire.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. There is a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, and this topic is very. I'm really happy to have you on the show for this topic in particular because you're one of the people who actually wised me up to this concept of the liberal moral frame and breaking out of it. And this is something I talk about a lot on the show now. And when I first met you in politics, it was around 2019. I was running for the PPC. And I was kind of a very sort of libertarian guy back then. And I said, no, to like Tyler, no, I can't get accused of racism. Like I can't say this because I'll get called names. Right. And you were kind of like, screw that, bro. Like you should get called names. You should get called, like that's like a badge of honor because the enemy is scared of you. That's why they're calling you these names. But you've had quite the experience in the world of politics in a short amount of time. So maybe share your kind of journey getting into politics and maybe how you first wised up to controlled opposition or the idea of these fake conservatives being, kind of screwing us over.
Yeah, sure. So it started probably back in 2016 with Trump. And when I went into university, I wasn't political. I didn't care. I had totally different aspirations. And, I was watching the debates with Trump and Hillary, and I just kind of saw it as entertainment at first. I was watching it just because it was like the big thing going on. But as these debates kept going on, I was like, Trump is making a lot of sense. He's funny. He puts it in a very enticing way. And what he's talking about, I totally agree with. So that was really like my main kind of dive into the world of politics. And then from there, I started off as a libertarian, just like you did. I think that many of us do that, right? We kind of start off as people who just want to be left alone and don't want the government to come down on us. And we want our freedom of speech and so on. But the longer that I was in these spheres, learning more, being around different people, hearing different ideas from the right wing, it became very apparent that you can't just sit back and say, no, don't do this to me. You have to be on the offensive, right? And from that point, I got into Faith Goldie, loved Faith Goldie. From there, I got into people like Gavin McInnes, Nick Fuentes. And then around the time when the PPC was created, I was helping out you. That was a lot of fun. That was a great dive into politics that year.
You actually captured the video when the Green Party and the NDP party candidate turned their backs on me on a debate. That was
exactly. Yeah. Good times. Some good times.
Great content.
Exactly.
Being treated like a bane on society in front of a whole like church full of like 200 people. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and then from that point, I was super into the PPC. Chelsea Hillier, I was helping with her campaign back in 2021. And a little bit before then, I started my own show, Canada First, where, I would talk about Canadian politics every single night. And, I quickly kind of gained a reputation of being one of the most further right-wing people in Canada. And I take pride in that. There's been multiple times where I've been canceled, so to speak. You can't really be canceled if you just don't care. So I use canceled with air quotes because I don't see it that way. I just see it as promotion, right? Mm-hmm. But, people really didn't necessarily know where I was coming from when I first started, I think. And since then, obviously being around the Groypers, being around a lot of you guys in chat, I've kind of grown my following, and here we are now.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Groyper is referring to a fan or a follower or a devout cult member of America First, a supporter of Nicholas J. Fuentes in the United States, who is also known as kind of like the far right guy in the States. And it's in many ways he kind of embodies that being on the offensive and completely breaking the liberal moral frame that we're stuck in. And let's talk about that. We're going to be talking about the Nazi in Parliament that everyone's talking about, and the kind of programming that I think I'm even guilty of having when it comes to this liberal moral frame. And who knows? In this conversation, maybe Kanye West will come up as well, or Ye. Excuse
Hell
me.
yeah.
But so when I talk about the liberal moral frame in the past, it's usually come up because Pierre Poilievre is being weak. He's not fighting for our values in one reason or another. He's not opposing mass migration. He's not opposing all these conservative things. And all of these CPC drones say, no, it's strategy, bro. Like, he's going to get called names. So this is us essentially being stuck as slaves, as globalist slaves, stuck on the plantation, being like, no, massa, I can't say that, massa. And it's we've lost. Like, we've already lost. If we have that mentality, if we have that attitude. And I think it's going to take a lot to crack it in Canada. What actually works in terms of smashing this sort of this liberal moral frame? What have you seen works in the States? Obviously, you're now with America First, so you think they're doing something right. But what's kind of your take on that? You mentioned being offensive, like on the offensive, but also you naturally kind of be offensive at the same time.
Both a little bit, yeah, for sure.
But maybe expand upon that. Like, give people some of the insights or like the tools or strategies that we should be implementing here up north.
Sure. I mean, it ultimately comes down to being, not being politically correct, right? And this is a term that lots of people came to know back in like the 2016 era of Trump. And you can't worry about what your enemy is going to think of you, right? Your enemy will never agree with you. And the amount of people that are going to change their minds is so minute that their minds are going to be changing anyways. You have to be able to present your ideas and push what you want to push politically without any worry about the names that you're being called. Anti-Semitism, for one thing. That's a word that's being thrown around like crazy right now with the whole ban the ADL stuff. I know that you guys had the HateGate stuff going on.
Yep.
And these groups like the ADL, the SPLC, anti-hate, they'll call you an anti-Semite because you don't like Israel. Well, there's a lot not to like about the country, okay? It doesn't mean that you hate all Jews or whatever it is. The country kind of blows. So, and they steal a lot of money from us. So it's kind of like,
there's a lot to criticize about the country.
For sure. Yes. So it's like, you're going to get called an anti-Semite, even if you're center-right, even if you're like some classical liberal, they're still going to call you it simply because you're right-wing, supposedly, right? So you can't worry about that. These people are going to do exactly what they do. A lot of them are paid to do it, whether it's by the government, by certain donors, by certain interest groups. So who cares if you get called racist? Maybe there's something to race realism, for example. Maybe there's some truth there. You just can't worry about these names because they've come to mean nothing now.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, like race realism is a very spicy and radioactive topic, or at least race realism is essentially antithetical to being politically correct. Race realism implies that there is a difference between people and their races. For various different reasons. And honestly, that's kind of staring us in the face here in Canada right now. We saw the riots going on in Paris. There's a lot of kind of news stories coming out. One of them most recently is Indian international students in Canada just stealing from our food banks. But basically,
they're also just having sword fights in parking lots. If you've seen those clips.
Yeah, that too. And and what I like to emphasize to people as well is there are, because you might hear these ideas and think they're so extreme, that's so crazy, that guy's insane, I can't believe he's saying this. Think about how crazy the people on the left are, and they're not only on the fringe, like on some podcast right now, they are like on CBC. They are in our major institutions. They are dictating policy in the worst cases. We Bill C-4, which is, approving of like gender affirmation, which is essentially like transitioning a kid and making it illegal to try and help a kid belong in their own body. That's an extreme leftist idea, far left idea. Where's the counterpoint to that? We're too afraid to have the counterpoint to that. And this is exactly why we're losing, right? Because not only are we not winning institutional power or kind of like, shifting the Overton window, it's almost like we've become so demoralized that we're afraid to even fight back because we're so accustomed to this moral frame of the discipline of like, ooh, racist, ooh, anti-Semitic, ooh, and then we don't want to do anything. We don't want to fight back because it hurts too much to get called these names. And I think it's especially a phenomenon in Canada because we're easygoing, we're kind of compliant people. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. So I think we're like, especially in a bad situation up here. Would you say that? Cause like you're lived in America, or you've been in America for a little while now on a vacation, I believe. And you've spent time in Canada as well. Would you say there's a big difference there in terms of the agreeableness of Canada versus America?
It's a massive difference. And the entire political landscape is different. There's a lot of people that think that it's very similar. And really the only way that that's true is that Canadians really only care about American politics and Americans don't care about Canadian politics. That's like the only overlap. We are far more extreme down here, as evidenced by J6, as evidenced by whenever election season comes around, we got the Trump supporters in the streets, they're marching, and, we have Antifa coming the opposite way, and there's clashes and stuff. Now, I don't condone violence, obviously, but it goes to show the spirit, right? And the passion for our country here. And I don't see that in Canada. There was I forget what the rally's called, Million People March, I think it was.
1 million
that happened like last
children. Yep.
Yeah, that happened like last weekend.
Yep.
And I saw some clips of that on Twitter, right? And it's always a good thing when people get out in the streets and they show up in their bodies that are representing what they want to represent. But like there was just no passion there, Like if that happened in America, that would have been, people would have been wilding out. It would have been crazy. But in Canada, they just kind of walk down the street and they have their cardboard and they say, oh, it's okay if you disagree with me. And then that's about it. Then they go home, right? So the biggest difference is the passion and the spirit behind what we do believe here. And, we see that in multiple facets when it comes to politics. When it comes to certain topics like the transgender stuff, right? You guys are definitely having protests against the drag queen story hours. I've seen some of those happen out in Alberta. But again, down here, it's taken up like 3 levels. Part of that is because we have the Second Amendment. So, Antifa will show up with guns. We get patriots out there with ARs. Nobody shoots, but it's that like we're serious. We actually mean business factor that Canadians just don't have.
Holy smokes. America. That's that's a great thing to point out. And while we're talking about Million Person March or Million March for Children, I noticed a big difference between, not to like racially stereotype, but between the kind of old stock white Canadians, how they would respond to my questions, and how a Muslim protester would respond. The Muslims were much more, this is wrong, I want it to stop. There was a lot more of that passion and that spirit there, where more of the, old stock Canadians were kind of like, hey, I swear I'm not racist, you guys. Or I'm sure I'm not homophobic. They wouldn't always kind of be that stereotypically like saying that type of stuff. But there's certainly a pattern of, white old stock Canadians kind of starting on their back foot when talking about it, afraid to just kind of have that conviction and say, this is wrong. And why? They're afraid to get canceled. They're afraid to get called these names. Again, a slave on the plantation of this liberal or globalist moral framework, right? So let's get into the Nazi in Parliament, OMG. So
let's do it.
I'll just actually jump into my first tweet here. I can't believe how many right-wingers in Canada are pearl clutching about the Nazi in Parliament, not realizing that they're enforcing and validating the same performative moral grandstanding that absolutely defines cancel culture, wokeism, and gives Trudeau all of his power. Can we address child abuse, violence, the death of innocence that's happening today, the many things that happened during the pandemic? And right-wingers are seriously bickering over who needs to apologize. Like I saw some tweets on Twitter, I couldn't believe it, where it's like, is he going to release a statement? Like he must do something. And it's like, is this seriously a right-winger? Is this seriously a conservative saying, I want Trudeau to apologize? Please give me your hollow platitudes and your virtue signaling. No, guys, we hate him for doing that. Remember how that's just, hey, I'm so sorry about something that happened hundreds of years ago. Oh, and then the media claps for Trudeau and his fake apology. I cannot believe that I saw like so many right-wing people kind of having this sentiment of like, he needs to make it better and make us feel better. And like, this is the whole ecosystem of this liberal moral frame that we're living in. And the funny part is we think that it's going to work for us, right? When this whole frame is designed to keep us enslaved, keep us afraid to standing up. But did you see this whole kind of scandal go down of this 98-year-old? What was your take on this?
Base Trudeau. I mean, when it comes down to it, Kanye was totally right. We got to stop dissing the Nazis. And it's not even the fact that we're national socialists, right? I'm not a national socialist. You're not. But again, this whole framework of like, you're a Nazi. Now, hyper-liberal Justin Trudeau, he's the epitome of Nazism. Like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. And you want to know who the vast majority of the population, even a lot of conservatives out there, people like Dave Rubin or Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, some people who, I'm assuming there might be some people in the chat who watch these guys. Do you want to know who your favorite commentators think are Nazis? It's us. They think that we're the Nazis, right? So It's like, and then on top of that, what do they want to do to the Nazis? We just had Charlie Kirk yesterday. We had a activist, Ryan Sanchez, ask a question at an event with Charlie Kirk and Dennis Prager from Prager U. And he was a very honest question. It was a great question. It was, hey, Charlie, why don't we form a big tent with everybody on the right wing? Like, why is there always all this infighting? Why can you not get along with people like Jared Taylor or Nick Fuentes?
Great question.
And what Charlie said was he laughed first. It's like super snarky fake laugh. And he goes, well, I'm not a Jew hater. And it's like, that sums it up right there. You know, we have like the most important election coming up next year. And Charlie Kirk is going to be out here dismissing the largest youth group in America because they're further right wing than he is. They're more conservative than he is.
And that
why are we always dissing the people to the right of us instead of working together to accomplish goals? It makes no sense.
And this happens in Canada as well. It's essentially happened to Jeremy McKenzie in various capacities, where the conservatives are actually disavowing the people who are further right and calling them various names. It might be anti-Semite, it might be odious, and they are the gatekeepers. They are the ones gatekeeping. And once again, they are using the liberal moral frame to do that. They're weaponizing the same idea of, you said something that hurt my feelings. And they're also doing the thing that the left does, which is just an obnoxious, not even exaggeration. It's just a smear. It's just like this insane accusation where if somebody criticizes Israel, for example, you want to kill this group of people, you know? And this is, we're going to touch on this a little bit later. But this is actually so crucial because it's not really just about these different labels, guys. There's a reason, I think, because I've been calling it the liberal moral frame, but really globalists use this across the world. They use this especially in Western countries, and they use it to villainize white people everywhere and basically say, hey, if there's any group of white people who are trying to stand up for themselves, they're going to be Hitler. They're going to end up being Hitler. We need to stop it right now. And if you've looked on social media, it's disgusting to watch, you know, white kids getting beaten up and like nothing happening. Like no one sees this video. Of course, if it was the reverse, it would be a whole other BLM situation. But, you know, this is really, really pressing, guys, because it's not just about, like political smears in the political world. This really comes down to this sort of anti-white agenda where, because of this liberal moral frame, it's like it's coaching us to, you know, critical race theory makes us want to hate ourselves, makes us want to resent ourselves. You know, white people are inherently racist. But not only that, in the political realm, it's like, don't stand up for yourselves or else it's going to lead to another Holocaust. And it's like, that is such a, again, not even an exaggeration. It's such a ridiculous accusation and lie that unfortunately so many conservatives will sort of like entertain, I guess, or like allow them to be cucked by and encouraged to be like just complete cowards because they don't want to get called the names. But it really does, I think, come down to that in a big way, because across the board, that seems to be the kind of the pattern, wouldn't you say, of the of like when people get called a Nazi, right? It's like, oh, you oppose immigration, mass migration, you're a Nazi. You're standing up for white people, critical race theory, you're a Nazi. You're concerned about, you know, declining birth rates for white people. You're of course you're basically Hitler. All these things. It's and it all comes back to this liberal moral frame. But I do want to say, for myself, I actually relate to the people who are still stuck in this liberal moral frame. Because I think, as I said in the beginning, I think we were programmed to be this way. You know, my whole sense of right and wrong, there's kind of like unconsciously, there's three things that come to mind: World War II, Hitler, Holocaust. Like that it was in, I don't know if it was through entertainment, I don't know if it was through TV or media. And again, guys, it's like, this isn't about defending Hitler, defending any of this stuff. It is to ask the question, why is it that this one historical event is really colorfully animating the conversation in 2023, like 78 years after the fact? It's actually crazy and insane if you realize that. And just to bring this up to drive home my point, because maybe you are someone watching who thinks, obviously Hitler was a bad guy. We should never give any sympathy to Hitler. The point is it's the emphasis on Hitler and the Holocaust, and that being the only, they almost have like a monopoly on tragedy, historical tragedy. When if you look at other numbers, it's, he comes in third place. Third place isn't bad, I guess. But kidding, of course. But, Mao Zedong, for example, Stalin, and many, many other genocides that have happened, like I would actually have more sympathy for the people freaking out about the Nazi being in parliament if there was any sort of consistency, but there's not. If you were to say, hey, I'm going to start a National Socialist Club, you would literally, your life would be.
You're going to jail.
Yeah, you're going to jail. But if you say, hey, I want to start a communist club, all right, start a communist party, great. Maybe you'll get a picture with Justin Trudeau. If I'm not mistaken, communism has like the highest death toll of any other like ideology that's led to like massive death in history. So why is communism almost adored and embraced by modern politicians? And but the Nazi one is totally the evil one. Like don't even mention it. Don't even talk about it. It's the devil. It's the worst. And I really do believe that this liberal moral frame it almost operates like a pseudo religion. Because I'm sure there are people that are going to come across this podcast and be like, these people are blasphemy. Like they're blaspheming my moral belief that Hitler is the devil and Nazis are demons. And like that's quite literally like how their moral framework operates. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you have anything else to add to this in terms of like how it operates and how you've been like subject to this kind of these smears?
Yeah, the exact same tactics that have worked a century ago are still being deployed today. And it's kind of like inflating the issue, right? So when it comes to World War II, and this isn't just about Germany, this is other countries as well, a lot of numbers are inflated when it comes to that conflict. And there's lots of inconsistencies. Obviously, history is written by the victor. And other countries like Italy have been lied about as well because they were allied with the Germans. And we see these same tactics being deployed against Trump supporters or, just Maxime Bernier supporters today. Trump supporters are going out there and they walk not even into the Capitol. They're just standing outside of it and they're going to jail for 20 years. The leader of the Proud Boys, he wasn't even in D.C. He was in Ohio and he got 20 years. Just because of who he is, right? So, and then you have to take a look at the media, and what do they say about it? They say that Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, he was leading this march against the Capitol, and he rallied his boys together, and they were going to overthrow our sacred democracy. It's like bro's in Ohio. He's like 3 states over. He wasn't there, and they're going to lie. They lie about almost everything. Obviously, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists in the chat right now, I'm assuming. You guys know that. Take a look at 9/11. Lots of lies going on there. Why wouldn't they lie about some of the biggest conflicts ever? And then the other thing, too, is we aren't so innocent. It's just like Trump said, there's a lot of killers, right? We aren't so innocent.
The world is an angry place. Well, we've done war. What do you mean? We've done plenty of war. It's great war.
Yeah. And Americans back in World War II, we threw the Japs in internment camps. We did crazy shit to the Japanese. And just take a look at the Middle East. We killed kids in the Middle East for like 20 years with Predator missiles. Like we aren't innocent ourselves.
No, not
so this is just the way that the world works. This is war. This is reality. Obviously, we do not live in a perfect world here, and you always have to be weary of the propaganda that is being pushed. And when it comes to propaganda, there's many people out there that associate that term with something negative. Propaganda isn't always negative. There's good propaganda out there, right? When we are pushing a message, this is a form of propaganda, or it should be. One of the biggest things that I tell people to get past is this idea of having a honest conversation in the free marketplace of ideas where we can disagree. I'm going to sit down with a leftist and we're going to figure it out together. We're going to unite. That is such BS. It's unreal. It is such BS. What you guys should be doing as right wingers, if you have your ideology down, if you truly believe what you are saying you do, you should be pushing propaganda. You should be looking at your online interactions as, I'm fighting for a team here. What can I do to advance this goal? Instead of trying to just like have a conversation that goes nowhere with somebody, right? These things are totally meaningless. It doesn't make any sense.
Man. You know what? That's a harsh message, but maybe some people need to hear that. I feel learned that the hard way in many respects. That being said, I'll add one caveat to what you just said, which is I think that there is a place for a sort of like open and honest kind of fair conversation, but it's kind of rare. Like it's kind of like
very casually too.
Yeah. Like it'll come around every now and then. Where someone's like, oh, wow, this person's actually open-minded to like hear about this. Like, oh, I guess we'll actually have like a civil conversation about this. But unfortunately, things, especially now, are so polarized that that I tend to agree that if I'm going to be interacting with somebody, even if it's a friend or a family member, I take one of two approaches. Either I sort of surrender before even starting by just kind of like not even caring, like I'm going to play dumb. Maybe I'll ask them some questions just to see what they really think about, because I don't really feel like having a debate right now. Or I will just straight up ridicule them, say some things like be really snappy, be a smart ass, and get them like really upset and like fuming. And people might say that's so mean, like you're an asshole. And to an extent that's true. However, I do that because I recognize that having a fair and open conversation, like kind of really sort of trying to have a good faith conversation, they're almost prepared with like their own script that they've kind of been coached to just repeat to you. And then when they repeat it to you, they kind of dig their heels in even more and think like, yes, I support the current thing. Yeah, actually, that's what I believe. And this is what, and typically it goes nowhere. So
yeah, now there's actually tactics to come with the ridicule style that you just talked about as well. And
right.
the whole idea is, when we are, griping somebody or pressing somebody about a certain issue, the point isn't to change that person's mind that you are pressing. The point is to change the minds of people who are looking on that, right?
People who are watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're never going to change, a person's mind one-on-one. It rarely ever happens. There's no point engaging in that. But if you beat that person, and you can press them enough and you can make them look stupid, or you can, kind of give some very convincing arguments that other people hear, that guy might not agree, but there's going to be somebody out there in the crowd or watching on Twitter or watching online who goes, that makes a lot of sense. And then those are the people that you want to bring in.
Yeah, and it's a reflection of the political conversation very broadly, like you said. Like there is no benefit to compromising with your message. No, you should be pushing your propaganda, pushing your message as hard as possible, and it's up for the people watching to decide. How do you help your message or your side when you're watering your side down? You actually just look weak. You actually just look like a pussy. And I think it's been so funny over the past year of these people simping for Pierre Poilievre. Oh, he's so amazing. He's so great. He's trying to bring people into the Conservative Party. It's like, I think he's actually doing the opposite. He's actually such a slippery kind of weasel who doesn't really have any conviction, talking about like, the price of milk all the time. If he were to actually just come out and say something bold, I think apolitical people would actually start to follow and get interested and actually cross the aisle potentially. And I think your engagement initially with politics is a good example of that. Weren't you like some like DJ bro before this, and you saw Trump and you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, I mean, it happens very quickly, right? There's a lot of people on the outskirts where it takes that one person within politics to connect with them. And then they're hooked and they're in and they get it and they realize, I don't just want to do something useless with my life. I don't just want to, like become a painter or like work at a retail store or something. You have the option to actually fight for something and change the world, change your country, and help out future generations, help out your future family, your kids. There's lots of guys out there with children right now or having children. And it's like, what is their world going to look like if you don't do something about it, right? So I think that message, it really resonates with young men who, year by year, they're becoming more disenfranchised. They're starting to understand that, my generation, Gen Z, it's going to be really hard for the vast majority of us to buy a house, to, have a 401k or put money away for retirement. We're getting just absolutely destroyed. And we got to do something about it. And, you definitely are seeing a certain level of extremism. I'm going to use that term loosely. It's kind of true, but I'm going to use it loosely still, of extremism within Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And that's because these kids are growing up. They're going into high school. They see what's happening around them socially, whether it's, a lot of girls being whores, the whole OnlyFans stuff going on. They see, that they take a look at CNN or Fox News and the world's just falling apart around them. They don't have a place anymore. And when you find that person that can show you that there is a pathway out of this, you're hooked. And I think it's really, really important that people follow that and do something about the situation that we're in.
I think you're right. And it reminds me of something I've been saying a lot now, which is, I'm discovering that politics has a lot more to do with psychology and just the psychology of people and leadership and power than it has anything to do with like ideology or, talking points or even policy for that matter. So much of it really is a psychological thing. But just to go back to a couple of things you said, Tyler mentioned the word groyping. And just to give you an example, groyping is essentially showing up at a public event and asking some public figure a tough question to make them look
pressing them. Yeah.
To make them look like an idiot. Like a good example for anyone watching, if you go to a Pierre Poilievre event, just take your phone out, record it, and be like, Pierre Poilievre, why do you support mass migration? How does that help?
More immigration than Justin Trudeau, by the way.
It's
How
crazy.
insane is that?
Like honestly, all it takes is that one question. And if you want to start a following on social media, seriously, go to a Pierre Poilievre event and record that and post it on Twitter, and watch the retweets flow in, because I don't even know if I've seen a video of that. Has anyone asked him this question? Has griped Pierre Poilievre?
I've seen a lot of stuff about the WEF and Agenda 2030, and that's been done a million times. But again, it kind of comes back to what we're talking about. People are afraid to even ask these questions. They don't want to be caught in public talking about immigration. Why are there 500,000 people that you want to bring in on an annual basis? And that's just legal immigration. These numbers are from a few years ago, but I think it was 1.4 million is the actual number when you take into account illegal migration and the foreigners coming over for schooling as well. I think it's 1.4 million. There was some site, somebody in chat might have the site on hand, but it's absolutely insane, the amount of immigration that's coming into Canada at this point. And the fact that nobody really wants to touch on it, it's a little bit suspect. I mean, quite obviously, all these people are controlled ops. So not to name drop the name of your show, but it's just true.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a conversation that people need to be having. And just to kind of, if you're someone who's livid at me and you're still listening for some reason, which would be very funny, just to kind of illustrate our point here, there are so many other important things to be talking about. And we keep getting distracted with, I might get called names, or remember Hitler 78 years ago? I don't care, guys. I know it was something awful. I know it was something terrible. There was a lot of terrible things that happened in history. But guess what? 500,000 people have died in the Russia-Ukraine war in the past year and a half. That's insane. Meanwhile, we have all of our politicians with less than zero nuance on the topic, not at all kind of going into the many different things that play here in this crisis. It's really that's something that we should be getting outraged about. That's something that people should be getting, hey, you should apologize. You should do something. This is where we need to put our energy behind it. And instead of, World War II, hey, remember World War II again? Yeah, someone needs, I feel I'm getting another, I'm crying again about World War II. Again, I'm not trying to minimize what happened, but when are we going to get over that and actually focus on the things happening today? But let's talk about the Ye angle really quick, because
Sure, yeah.
I in many ways I think that Ye kind of, I was thinking of posting this at the time, but guess what? I was afraid, Tyler. I was afraid to kind of support Ye at the time. I didn't want to be associate with the biggest anti-Semite in the world at the time. But essentially what Ye said, like my interpretation of some of what Ye was saying with "I love Hitler" and "we got to stop dissing the Nazis all the time," is I saw it as, oh my God, this guy is attacking cancel culture at the nucleus, at the root, at the core of cancel culture. Because really, what is the most evil thing in cancel culture is Hitler, is the Nazis. And, again, people aren't going to like this, but you need to realize that this guy named Adolf. He was cover of Time magazine, 1938. So you're smiling a little.
The
too
man
hard
of the
there, Tyler.
year.
You're smiling a little bit too hard there, Tyler. so he was the man.
I mean,
of the
okay,
year.
I have to say the drip goes hard. Like it does. It goes hard.
Hugo Boss.
The hard pick.
Shout out to Hugo Boss. But and then who do we have here? Oh wow. Oh, Zelensky was person of the year, right? Like it's worth pointing out here, I think. And what I believe Ye was kind of alluding to, and so eloquent he was, saying, hey,
absolutely,
Germany invented the Autobahn and like the TV and stuff like that. But it actually there is a lot of truth to what he was saying, which is during, I don't know German history very well, but maybe you can help me out on this. But essentially there was Weimar Germany, which was very, for lack of a better word, degenerate and decaying. There was poverty. There was a lot of, prostitutions of like kids was like a normalized thing in Germany. It was a very, very like destitute place to be. And
trannies as well.
It's sounding kind of, I wonder what the job market was like. I wonder what the price of milk was like in Weimar Germany. And somebody named Hitler showed up and started a movement that kind of helped Germans like respect themselves again. And of course, World War II happened and all that stuff happened. People killed each other on both sides, blah, blah, blah. But the point is like, I think that Ye was getting at is like, guys, there were good things as well. Obviously, like obviously there was, like, it's the same thing. Like, oh, Hitler bad. Oh, Putin bad. Right. Cause that's the whole narrative right now with the Zelensky, with the Ukraine-Russia war. There's no nuance at all. It's just Putin bad. And it's like, is that really the whole conflict? Yes. Putin bad. He wants to take over the world. And it's like, that seems like an oversimplification. Right.
For sure.
And this is the logic that the liberal moral frame that cancel culture operates on. It's you are not a person anymore. You are just a villain. There can be no redemption. You are terminally this thing. You are terminally a Nazi. You're terminally racist. You are going to be that way forever. You've never done anything right in your life. Like, it really is a, I don't know. It's such an evil thing, right? It's like accusing you and like blaming you. And like, there's no sort of recourse whatsoever. So I think that's kind of, that's my interpretation of kind of a few things that Ye was saying. He was kind of trying to dispel cancel culture at the nucleus. And to be fair, like I'm uncomfortable right now talking about it. It's not something that I've talked about and even publicly, because some people are going to try and take these clips possibly and make us look like assholes, make us look like Nazis.
They're definitely watching right now. They're definitely watching right now, Greg.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. Make sure you get a good clip of us. Maybe add this one in there too. That'd be a good go fuck yourself, right? So yeah, I mean, you did the Ye is right thing as well.
Yes, yeah.
That must have been very interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And most importantly, I think that we really got a good message out there too. It's just like you said, right? There's a lot of people who were scared to show face and support Kanye. And, there's a lot of people making excuses for him too. A lot of people in Con Inc. Because before he teamed up with Nick, he was kind of making the rounds at TPUSA and with Candace Owens and stuff. And that's when he dropped the White Lives Matter shirt. And when I saw that drop, I'm like, okay, this is like so freaking base. Like, this is our guy. Let's go. And then, you tune into Benny Johnson's Twitter and he's like, oh, what he's trying to say is, oh, he actually meant this. And it's like, no, he's saying white lives matter. Like that's what he meant. Right. And, there was another example of this too. It came out that Kanye wanted to name one of his previous albums Hitler, which is a fact. That's true. He wanted to name it Hitler. And it didn't happen, of course, probably due to record labels. I mean, that would be a pretty crazy sell, if I'm going to be honest, to sell an album named Hitler. But he really, really wanted to do it. And, again, the excuses fly in. Oh, that's fake. That's just tabloid trash. Whatever. It's like, no, he did want to do that. And it's like, it's all these excuses have to be made because somebody, it's because you're uncomfortable with somebody speaking their mind freely. And Kanye was absolutely right about a lot of things, and that's what made Dalton and I want to go out there and support him. Kind of going back to Weimar Germany, Magnus Hirschfeld, he was a gay Jewish guy in Berlin who made the first ever transsexual operation building, or I forget what it's called in German, where they were doing experiments on children. They were creating transgender propaganda. They had the first trans surgery there in Berlin in the middle of Germany before Hitler came in. And, there's a lot of people.
It's crazy how that stuff like not new. We think it's like this new progressive thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's like, free love, like, gay rights. And it's like, this actually happened like 70 years ago or more. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. And, at that time, people were just kind of like going with it because everything was so bad. There was no direction, right? So it was just kind of allowed to happen. And then, some boys got together and they said, this isn't right. This isn't cool. So what happened after that? They go into the building, they take the books, they light up big bonfires. And then now one of the worst things you can do is burn a book. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this whole narrative comes out of, they were burning education books and all this knowledge. Is that education? Is that the education that we want our kids learning? Not really. That stuff has to go. And it's the same with anything, communist, anything that is so degenerate. When it comes to porn, for example, why is that so easily accessible? We should, metaphorically burn porn. We should not allow it. We should ban it. Right? So it's like, that's kind of what Kanye was getting at. You can't just, throw a blanket over something and be like, everybody that was a part of this is terrible. They're the worst thing ever. It's like you have to look at these different scenarios. Maybe there was a reason why the things that happened did, right? And, I've always predicted that, especially with how polarized we are now, we're quickly approaching another kind of inflection point in Western politics where it's no longer going to be, these stuffy suits walking up there and trying to, pander to this centrist voter bloc. We are quickly approaching a time where it's going to be very obviously the left versus the right and nobody in the middle. And that comes down to who's going to win, who's going to take the L. We have to win in that case. If we're going to sit back and take the L and do nothing about it, then might as well just pack it up right now because like what are you even doing? It's coming to a do or die scenario. And, a great example as well of this was when we were doing the EA is right stuff. We're using all these talking points, and we were actually getting pretty good reception. We'd obviously have some leftists that came out there and, they bitch and complain and moan, oh, you're anti-Semitic, you're racist, even though we're supporting Kanye West, by the way. And, then we get a couple of guys that come over and they're like, you know what? You're actually making sense. This isn't that bad. Like, yeah, we have to do something about the problems within our society. And then you see Ron DeSantis, and, this wasn't just us. The Goyim Defense League, I'm sure you've heard of them. They were like passing out flyers and throwing out pamphlets in Florida too. And this was going on at the same time that we were doing Ye is Right. So there was lots of anti-Semitism going on in the state of Florida during that time frame. And Ron DeSantis flies to Israel and signs a bill banning that. So now that's illegal, and you can't do that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was so kind of just on its face noteworthy. It's like, okay, you actually flew to Israel to sign this bill in Florida. Like that seems very very, very interesting. And I've seen creators like Anomaly kind of break down, and I think Keith Woods as well, break down sort of like what are in these bills. And, you know, anti-Semitism is like this huge basket of definitions. And this is kind of the other reason I kind of brought up earlier how the liberal moral frame and kind of like not like Nazis and Hitler being the devil, how it really kind of prevents any sort of white collectivism. It kind of just kind of permanently makes us a villain if we try to stand up for ourselves, and that's a huge problem. But I think the second most urgent problem with this liberal moral framework is and making Hitler the devil and all this stuff. It is inviting free speech violations. It's inviting sort of like, you know, our free speech being impended upon because of Nazis and anti-Semitism. And to kind of exemplify, I don't know if I have it right in front of me, but essentially the weird thing about the word anti-Semitism is they use this like definition that comes from the International like Holocaust Remembrance Association. And it's like here's one of them. Let me bring it up here. Oops. This is what defines. This is what is officially under like speech laws in Florida right now. Claim Jews are more loyal to Israel or other Jews than their own nation. Oppose the existence of the state of Israel. Apply double standards to Israel by expecting things of it not demanded of other nations. Draw comparisons of Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. I mean, like really, like this, like it's kind of insane. Like I can't even make comparisons anymore. Like this is a lot more than just you can't say this one thing. This is like a whole grocery list. You can't even make that comparison. Actually, like that is I don't know the word, but it's very scary that this passed, and it sets a horrible precedent. It sets a horrible precedent. And I think I want to call out Jordan Peterson right now because he was very adamant about free speech laws when it came to compelled speech, when it comes to gender pronouns. You know, there was this law that was going to be passed in Canada to say, if you don't call me by my pronoun, like I can charge you for, you know, violating my human rights. And in principle, Jordan Peterson was like, absolutely not. And that was honestly why he became so popular, especially in the political space, because he was principled. He said no. But guess what? Guess what, Mr. Peterson? There has been laws, I believe, in the States, and if I'm not mistaken, in Canada as well, where it's basically saying like Holocaust denialism specifically is illegal. Like you'll get in trouble for saying the wrong thing about a historical thing. That is a terrible precedent for speech law, because who's to say it's not going to start with, well, I mean, having it to start at all is bad, but they've even tabled from the NDP, the left coming now to attack freedom of speech, no denialism of the residential schools, of the dead kids they found buried, even though they haven't really produced.
Which is obviously fake.
Right. And it's very kind of obviously this dystopian thing, because it's like, why this thing from 78 years ago that we can't talk about a specific way? It seems very, very strange. And also the fact that it aligns perfectly with like kind of protecting and insulating the core, the nucleus, the Death Star of the liberal moral framework that we seem to be stuck in right now.
Now the exact thing that you're talking about, it happened in Canada like a few days ago. Gabriel Chaput, he was a writer for a very good weather website. It's called the Daily Stormer. They do a bunch of like weather news articles and stuff.
I haven't heard of that.
Oh yeah, probably not. And basically he wrote a parody article, and he got 15 months in jail in Canada for anti-Semitism. 15 months.
For parody.
It was one article too.
Because the parody was it actually a parody, or are you just saying that?
Well, I mean, the site, they use humor and comedy to kind of get a point across, kind of thing. So it might not have been like straight up parody, but it was definitely comedic in nature.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to look into that myself. But yeah, and once again, for right wingers, this is very pressing. This is very urgent because this is freedom of speech being attacked, not by the left, but it's coming from the right, and it's being used under the guise of anti-Semitism. And once again, it connects to this liberal moral frame that we are stuck in. I think we're going to wrap it up in a minute here, but let's talk about actually the cancel culture agents out there who, before we go, because Hategate happened recently, which was kind of confirming what we already knew, but still very, very important stuff nonetheless. And you've recently got featured on Right Wing Watch, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Sorry, bear with me. Where's the freaking link, dude? Come on. Oh, here it is. So shall we read the caption as well?
Absolutely.
White nationalist Tyler Russell says that all Western countries must have a white Western leader. You can't have people from other ethnicities, from other parts of the world governing your people. Obama was far enough. That was over the line.
These are Western.
Okay. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hear this. Just so you
Okay.
know. But the people at home can hear.
These are Western countries. You need a white Western leader. Like, come on. It just makes sense. Obviously, if you're in America, Canada, any country in Europe, Australia, you can't have people from other ethnicities, from other parts of the world governing your people. Like, makes no sense.
Yeah, it's a pretty fair point because I don't think anyone in the Western world would say, hey, black people in Africa aren't like, why can't we have more white people leading Africa?
Exactly.
Why can't we have more white people leading Chinese? Why can't we have more white people here or there? It's like, it's kind of obvious. It's just, and it goes to show kind of like how deep the programming has gone, where it's like, no. Diversity is our strength. Okay. And of course it's been layered on thick. I'm finding in the Western countries, but tell me a bit about this kind of like right wing watch. Do you get picked on by other people? Cause it really exemplifies a lot of what we're talking about, which is like, hey, this is me pointing out, hey, maybe whites should collectivize more and kind of look out for their own in a majority white country and kind of encourage more white leaders in white countries. But it's like, this makes you a white nationalist. This makes you some horrible, evil person. Meanwhile, if you're a black person encouraging for more black leaders, you're like literally on the front page of the Globe and Mail. You're literally getting your dick sucked by CBC. The red carpet rolled out by Justin Trudeau. We know the double standard exists, but it's about not even playing by their standards, right? And kind of making our own and just telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been an advocate for all countries in the world to remain whatever country they are, right? So it's like in Japan, you wouldn't want a bunch of African migrants moving in there, then all of a sudden Japan is not Japan. Like they have a whole continent. They can do whatever they want with that continent. They have a homeland, but it's only for white people because of the Great Replacement. We don't get a homeland, according to the globalists. We are not allowed to have our own countries to go back to. And just take a look at, all of the migration that's happening over in Europe, France, England, Italy, all the way up to Sweden. It's going to be done. Within my lifetime, all of the European countries are going to be not European. And the same goes for Canada, America, and Australia. And for Canada, it's actually worse. Canada's on the fastest track because of the population size and the rate at which they are bringing in these migrants. I'm pretty sure it's 2040 is when Canada becomes a majority minority country. Why? Like that should not be happening. These Western countries are white Christian nations, and they should be represented by white Christian people. This doesn't mean that, you can't have any black people or Indians or Chinese people over here. Of course, there's going to be some, and that's totally fine, right? But we're not doing this to China. We're not doing this to Japan or Africa or India or like Egypt or anywhere in South America. We're not all migrating to Haiti, So these places, they all have their own spots. Cool. Yeah, I know that some of them suck. They're all shitholes. I get it. I get that we're the best. But it's like we have to keep our country intact here. We have certain values. And if we bring in all these people, this whole melting pot idea of, just full-on diversity, everybody's going to be brown and it's going to be awesome, we are going to lose everything. And that's completely irreversible. There's lots of people out there, lots of so-called conservatives, and they say socialism is the worst thing ever. That's our main focus. We got to stop socialism. Besides the immigration stuff, I think that a lot of these social democracies, whether it's Norway or Sweden or Finland, yeah, sure, they're socialist. They're a bit more libtarded, but they're doing fine, besides the immigration, of course. So it's not really socialism. It's these very real physical things that are happening to this country, which is the absolute pillaging of it by these third worlders. And they come in here, they don't have the same values as us. Takes down IQ many notches. And then all of a sudden your population is now not what it once was, right? And that's irreversible. You can always, vote out some socialists like Justin Trudeau. You can always do something to put in place a new leader under, maybe even a different system than democracy. You will never be able to replace the people. That is the number one issue.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, it's like what made Canada over the years. A lot. I would argue that it was the French Catholics and the English Protestants, and a lot of white immigrants. And sure, we could debate about that, but the fact of the matter is, it's even worse here in Canada, the phenomena, because not only are kind of people coming from the third world with different values or customs or IQ levels, but there's not even any sort of system to better integrate these people at all. Like there's no sort of, like, they didn't even receive a brochure that says like, hey guys, don't shit on the beach, or like, hey guys,
don't eat mud. We have food here.
This is a food bank. It's for homeless people or people who are in dire need. You shouldn't do it if you're an international student. Like we don't even have any sort of system to try and better assimilate people. And I mean, we're gonna wrap it up here in a sec, but I think we covered a lot of good ground. I think mass migration is something that is not talked about nearly enough. And it speaks to how bad, and I talk about this a lot in the show, but this speaks to how badly we're being beaten in Canada, where we won't even talk about these things. We won't even talk about these things, and we'll mysteriously still support politicians who aren't talking about these things, even though we know it's a massive, massive problem. So it starts by breaking out of the plantation, guys. It starts by smashing this fake liberal, globalist, fake morality, this fake moral framework, and creating our own. Because, getting called names is worth it. It's worth getting called names to actually do the right thing. But hey, Tyler, thanks so much for your insight and your comments. Where can people find you, or if you have any other things that you want to share, let the people know.
For sure, yeah. So you guys can watch my stream over on cozy.tv/Tyler Russell. The best place to keep up with what I'm doing is on Telegram, t.me/Tyler L. Russell. Then, of course, I have Gab and I have Instagram and all that stuff. It's all Tyler L. Russell. But Greg, thank you very much for having me on. This was a blast. I always love talking with you, offline and stuff. So it was very fun to do it online. And, I'm hoping that the audience could have learned something. They found it entertaining, found it maybe inspiring to speak more of their mind. Just all of that good stuff. So I'm loving what you are doing with your show. I catch it whenever I can, and it's sick. So once again, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. I really value your insights into this. I think Generation Z and the younger generations in general kind of have a more militant or that kind of aggressive nature that we really need, that youthful nature that we really need, because you're looking at the future, you're looking how old you are. Like I'm pretty young still, and it's like we need to start fighting back against this because the future does not look good otherwise. You know, throw some labels at me, I don't care. And I think that's exactly what we need more of. So thanks so much for being on the show. And as always, guys, it is okay to demand higher standards. Thanks for watching.